Welcome to Bulletcast, a bullet catcher gaming podcast. In this episode, we will be talking about the death of Frontline. And now, your host, Andy from Bullet Catcher Gaming.
Thank you very much, Marcus, for the intro. Apologies if my sound is not the absolute best. My microphone packed up and I am using a spare one and I don't like it. So apologies if it doesn't sound the best. I've got a new one on the way. Today, we are joined by Delta Company guest, Vandar, who you may have recognised from the recent Spartan Mod podcast that we did. We also have another Delta Company member, AI Blue Fox. He's also joining us. And from the Discord, we have Tonka and we have Carbon and also one of our trusty admins, the Slade Tyrant. And of course, A-Up himself. We want to discuss, obviously, the recent news from about a week or so ago, the end of Frontline. I made a video about this, just going over very basics of what this could mean, good and bad, for the franchise. So we thought it deserved a more of an in-depth discussion with some like-minded people. So I think the easiest place for us to start here has to be, what was everyone's initial reaction to this being cancelled? Were you surprised, not surprised? That's probably our best place.
Not surprised.
Overjoyed.
Yeah.
Okay, so all right then, maybe that was a stupid question.
Figures.
Why? Give me the reasons. Why was everyone so? People were like Blue Fox, for example. You just said you weren't surprised.
Yeah.
Why weren't you surprised?
I think the community reaction that they received when they announced what was happening was pretty much an echo of some of the earlier feedback they might have received from the game testers. That it was too far away from perhaps what Ghost Recon is known for nowadays. And they've got form, so they ran Phantoms for a while and then killed it. So if they don't think it's got the support it needs, they have got form in terms of cancelling a PvP in Ghost Recon. So I wasn't surprised. I mean, there were a couple of options they could have had. They could have taken the Clancy name or the Ghost Recon name off it and given it its own IP. So I wasn't surprised.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense, and that's an interesting point. Would they have ever released it had they taken the Tom Clancy name off of it? We'll get to that, I reckon, in a bit. So anyone else, so what did you think? I mean, my personal opinion is that I wasn't surprised. And just a quick reminder, who played it here? Who else played it other than me? Someone else did.
Yeah,
you played it as well. Yeah. Okay. Well, obviously, we'll get onto a little bit more about that as well a bit later. So for the other guys who say haven't played it, or what did you think? I mean, like A-Up, for example, you said that earlier before we started that you did actually want to play it. So from someone who actually wanted to play it, what do you think? What did you think of the news? Were you disappointed?
I would say 50-50 because I'm not going to say that it was out, as far as like out of question, because I think me and you spoke about it maybe 2-3 months ago, and I was saying, are you planning to go that route? And you say, well, it all depends on what happens in the game itself, if it comes out and actually, but time will tell for that. But as far as I would have at least tried it, I mean, at least it would have been a free game to try. If I didn't like it, I could easily delete it. I didn't drop any money for it.
So we know people that obviously are most of the people that I've seen just didn't care that it was cancelled at all. They just didn't care. Why do you think then that this game? What was its biggest failing? Why do people not care that this game is cancelled? I think this is probably one of the more in-depth points that we can look at. What was it about this game that really just pushed people's buttons in the wrong way? I mean, we all know. I mean, I've seen a few comments this week from people saying, "Don't blame the first-person shooter part of it for its overall failing." And though that's an interesting point, I definitely think it was quite a big part to why this game was received badly. I don't think there's any escaping that. What do you guys think?
Personally, I don't necessarily agree with that. Just because a lot of veterans from Ghost Recon, I mean, guys who have been around the full 20 years, know that the very first 3, and then even Ghost Recon 2 and its DLCs, it was first person. Those first 3 were first person only. And they were still wildly successful. I don't think the first person aspect is what killed it. Simply because first person shooters on the market are almost everywhere. Some of them are bad, some of them are good. Ghost Recon had a better shot than most. If they would have done a first person. I'm still hoping that they include a first person option, and I know several other people who are as well. So just with that amount of feedback as well, and hopes and speculation for the next Ghost Recon, I really doubt that first person's going to be the main blame for it.
So what would you say is the main blame for it then, if we're not looking I mean, I do believe that there are people who have only got into Ghost Recon since some of the newer games who like third person, because to them a lot of what Ghost Recon is all about is your character, dressing your character, what gear they're wearing, and as soon as you go into that first person, you lose a lot of that.
Yeah, tactical Barbie.
Yeah, we laugh about it, but let's be honest, it is true. I mean, if you
good photos.
If you look at a game like Call of Duty with how successful it is, what you don't see if you look up Call of Duty right now, or you Google it, whatever, what you'll find is video content that people make. You don't tend to get people taking photographs. If you look up, like, or whether it be on Discords or whatever, what you do tend to find on Ghost Recon is a lot of people taking photos of themselves. It is definitely a part of the game. How big a part of a game is it? It's hard to say, but a lot of people do it. And I definitely think there's a lot of people that no, I'd need that intrinsically to be part of my game. I need this. And going back to the point you just said, I think the most important thing about a new Ghost Recon game is to have not only third person, but the option for first, when other Ubisoft games already do it.
So I say I agree that any Ghost Recon PvP should have an option for first person. The reason I'm attracted to third person personally isn't so I can look at my character so much. It's that every time I play a shooter, and I played a lot of first person and third person shooters, when it's third person, there is more of a team dynamic that goes on because you're observing the opposition, sometimes from cover, obviously, but it tends to slow the tempo of the game down a little bit. And that slight reduction in tempo gives you a little bit of space to talk and discuss things as a team. So that's why I kind of get attracted to Ghost Recon in a third person perspective. But to build on the point about why was that such a big reaction in the community, I think that was a convenient stick to beat it with. So
yeah, I can agree with that.
Part of the why am I dissatisfied with Frontline? If you ask lots of different people, they'll all have been dissatisfied with a different aspect of it. And the change from first to third was one of those. Yeah, so and it's an obvious and easy target for a game that you're dissatisfied with for any particular reason to say, well, it's different, therefore I don't like it. And you can almost argue that Ubisoft have got a huge queue of people waiting to trash every video they release anyway. So there's
personally for me, I kind of disagree with some of the sentiment. I agree with your sentiment about the third person, helping a team aspect. Yeah, the FOV that you have that helps, increase your situational awareness, gets better eyes on. That, that's, that everybody has that. Everybody that I talk to, especially from like the Milsim perspective, enjoy, having that. Another thing that mainly comes to my mind about that, though, is that the mentality there, you could still easily go as fast paced as you want, even in third person. The mentality is
Yeah,
where
yeah.
Ghost Recon, and this is where I think really it utterly starts to fail, is you're losing those aspects of that teamwork side of it. I mean, taking a look at other battle royales, yeah, there's a lot of teamwork aspects that go into that sort of thing. But it's not what Ghost Recon is known for. This is coming from anybody who's been around for the full 20 years, or those who've only been around for Breakpoint, or just Wildlands, or Future Soldier. Like, there's PvP has always been around in Ghost Recon. But as far as like a battle royale situation with it, where it's not like a team versus a team, and then those teams working together to complete whatever objective it is. Now it's more of a lone wolf, last man standing mentality, and it's not one that personifies Ghost Recon at all.
Yeah, I agree. So the actual gameplay, the design of the battle royale aspect of it is something that's so alien to the special forces fantasy that Ghost Recon's built around, I guess.
Yeah.
It's just, why would I be doing this if I was special forces? I'd have just got out of there. And how come I've arrived in the field without a gun? I mean, that's just.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point, actually. That is a great point, and I think it's definitely about. It's why I think it's so important to not blend. It's why it almost goes back to one of the complaints about Breakpoint at the beginning of its life cycle, where people kept, even though it's not really the same game, you saw so many people saying this isn't the Division. Why have you put Division mechanics in it? And I think it's really important for Ubisoft to understand that they need to keep these IPs. They shouldn't always blend them together. They don't need to be blended. They should be their own thing. The Division should be its own thing. Ghost Recon should be its own thing. And but I mean, we can talk about crossovers all we want.
I'll put a caveat to that really quick, Andy. There are where I completely agree, where there are some things that should not be, like actual IP ideas, like these gear score things. However, I do think there's something to be taken from each one of these IPs as far as like a mechanic goes for, like, say, Division, player movement and graphics. That'd be great to have from Division, just because it feels better than what we currently have in Ghost Recon.
Yeah, and
I was going to
I was just going to say that the story, even the story beats, you can get away with. If you had I don't know, so there was a faction in the Division and then they were in Ghost Recon, you could make that work in if it was written well, you could make that work. But like you said, it's specifics, like gear score is such a huge component in the Division that it didn't work in Breakpoint. But I want to get to a hypothetical question as before we talk about some other points. So we're talking about, we were just discussing, obviously, having this game in first or third. So let's say Frontline had never happened. You'd never heard of it. You'd never seen a trailer, and this podcast wasn't happening. And tomorrow, exactly the same trailer drops than what we got, but it was all in third person. Same game, same scenario, free to play. Would it have gone down differently, or would we be having exactly the same conversation?
That would be a 50-50 because nobody knows what it's about. If they didn't add the Tom Clancy to it or the Ghost Recon, then it might, like we said earlier, it might fly. Because everything out here pretty much now, Battlefield, Call of Duty, they're all first person view. If you got this third person game out there like Breakpoint is currently in Wildlands, some people might gravitate towards it because one, it's free. They don't have to pay anything to it. And two, hey, I'll try it and see what's it like. You know, everybody knows Call of Duty style. So they know what they're expecting.
Yeah, my suspicion is it would have still had quite a kickback from the community, but because of the battle royale aspect and the progression aspect that goes with that battle royale trope, third person might have reduced the criticism somewhat. But I don't think one particular thing like third person was a real decider from the backlash from the community. It was the combination of everything, and that effectively unified a set of disparate groups that may have objected to the game for different reasons. All of a sudden became a unified group. So that amplified that negative feedback. So I think it probably still would have had a pretty bad reaction, even if it had been third person and everything else was the same.
Yeah, I think the other
that's
thing.
what I was going to say is they created a community of from Ghost Recon, Wildlands, and Breakpoint, and they started something that's different from Call of Duty and all these other games.
Mm.
And now they turn around and made a game just like Call of Duty.
Yep.
Yeah.
What's the attraction to it? I mean, you
think
might as well just play Call of Duty. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
yeah, I think the other thing is that they've got a lot of offerings that are quite similar or not very well defined in terms of identity. So we've got X Defiant as well. You've got Division Heartlands coming out as well, and then you had Frontline all doing similar things.
Yeah, I think what you just said there, and what Carbon just said before it. I think what we're trying to look at here is the fact that if they said, okay, we're going to take Ghost Recon, as Blue Fox and Tyrant were both saying a minute ago, we're going to take this franchise that you know for this, and we're going to move it into something different. We're going to make it look different. We're going to make it play different. We're going to make it battle royale. It's going to be going down that road. And the problem being is that there's a lot of people out there. Now, I presume that they did this because they thought perhaps maybe they could draw more people who don't play Ghost Recon into Ghost Recon. I presume that's one of the reasons why they did it. The problem being is that the battle royale format is already done very well, extremely well, by other people, to the point where I just think it's irrelevant if you're trying to take a franchise that's not known for it at all and move it into that space. I mean, to me, it would be no different. Some people may say this is extreme, but it would be no different by them suddenly taking another Ubisoft title that is not known for battle royales and saying, like Far Cry, they suddenly go, there's a new Far Cry game coming out. Here's the trailer, and it's a battle royale. And I think most people would just scratch their heads and kind of go, "What?
Yeah.
Why would you do that?" And like Call of Duty Warzone, whether you like it or you don't, and it's fine either way. They've put together something that works, and we're going to get the new version of it soon as well. Battlefield. Now I know Battlefield has plenty of issues, but loads of people play it, and no matter what we think, you cannot. And I know this is cringeworthy when I say this, but you can't even take Fortnite out of the conversation either. Fortnite, even if you despise it like I do, it is a juggernaut in that space. And I know that people think, children play Fortnite. But yes, I imagine that most do. But I know adults who play Fortnite. There are plenty of adults that play Fortnite. And because it's more of a casual experience and they enjoy it. So
I was just going to, Battle Royale is completely saturated. There is no point even trying to enter that market. It's already done, as you said, better by others. and it's an uphill struggle trying to enter that. Rather than let's come out with something different and unique that people haven't experienced before, rather than copying trends that are already well established.
Yeah, I mean,
What?
they'd be better doing a Raving Rabbids version of a battle royale and giving it a complete unique twist, so that rather than try and kind of mimic too much what Call of Duty was doing, it did
What I
feel. Yeah,
go ahead.
sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, all I was gonna say is it did feel like they were trying to copy some other franchises in terms of that move to battle royale. They were trying to copy the PUBG and the Warzone success.
Just plain
One
devil's
thing that just confuses me. Sorry about that, Von Hart.
no, there you go.
They had a pretty successful. I know that Wildlands' PvP was pretty successful, but that one didn't really stream as successful as Future Soldiers PvP, where it wasn't determined. Like with Wildlands, it was very much Siege-esque. You had your, I guess, classes, and then it was the last team standing one. In Future Soldier, it felt more like what Ghost Recon was supposed to be, and that was you played for an objective. Didn't matter if you got like 100 kills in a match, you could still lose if you didn't, work those objectives. And that was, I mean, I have hilarious memories of hearing Call of Duty players on my team screaming at the top of their lungs because they couldn't understand why they were losing. They had over 50 plus kills in a PvP match, but they could never ever figure out why they were losing. And it's because they were trying to get those 50 kills where the objective was not, so the enemy would just amass over where the objective was and dominate the objective, take the objective, and win this series of objectives and win. I'm glad that somebody else is laughing because there was a lot of them. But
there's a couple other games out there. It's the same way.
But it
has objectives to the match.
Exactly, and it did it better than like Call of Duty did it, in my opinion. Because it wasn't just one objective and then one objective type for the entire game duration. It was multiple objective types. There was multiple ways of getting an edge on the enemy. They had something that was so identifyingly unique, and then they only did it once, and it makes no sense.
I'm surprised they didn't repeat that. I thought
Me too.
That was conflict game mode, wasn't it? I'm surprised they didn't bring conflict back with Ghost War.
Yeah.
And a respawn mode with it. That because I thought that was a great mode. I mean, I preferred the earlier Ghost Recons. I've got to be honest in terms of PvP. I enjoyed Future Soldier. Got a lot of time on it.
Right.
Great game mode. It was like you say. It really focused teams on the objective.
We actually have a PvP Ghost Recon legend in the audience at the moment, which is Misadventure from Delta Company. But I want to ask a question actually based on PvP. For those who do play PvP on Breakpoint or did play PvP on Breakpoint, isn't it strange that they stopped any kind of support for PvP? I believe, now don't quote me on this, but I believe it was, when did the game come out? September?
October,
5 months?
October 2019.
February, Terminator. I'm sure it was the Terminator event. After that, nothing. I'm pretty sure there were no new maps after the Terminator event. Don't quote me on that though. That's what I believe.
I remember it was. It finished early, but it uncharacteristically early.
Yeah. So, do you believe then that that's the reason, because they were working on Frontline, that they were like, well, look, we're going to have this for everyone soon, so no one's going to mind if we just kind of forget about that. Do you think that's what they were thinking?
I doubt it.
I think he spent most of the time trying to fix the DMR glitch.
Yeah, because every time you looked around, not naming any particular members, but every time you looked around, there was a new DMR glitch. And as soon as the update was done, probably within 5 days, there was a new DMR glitch.
Yeah, and it ruined the raid, and as well, if anyone raided, I mean,
Can't
well,
ruin
some
something that's already ruined, Andy. Come on.
okay, fair play. All right, then.
I mean, for
I
some
don't
people,
know why it ended, but
for the first few months when Breakpoint came out in October, and then they said, okay, the raid is on Thanksgiving. Okay, they gave it another option to play. Now that true enough, some people might have grinded to get to 250 by that point. They did not know that you could go up to 300, but it was still fun. I remember that first weekend when it did come out. It took us 5-6 hours just to beat ball. So, and you talking about hooping and hollering once it was done. It was like, yes. And then we found out, okay, now we got to go and fight this flying machine. Okay, we just took 6 hours to kill the first one.
yeah.
You
I don't
telling
know
me
why
you telling me
yeah.
there's another one?
And then another one after that. I don't know why they ended Breakpoint early. My from a personal perspective, myself and all the friends I played with abandoned Breakpoint. The pacing wasn't right for us. The movement, the 360 turnaround, the way the game played in terms of its pace. I know some people really liked it, but for us it wasn't the thing. And we've been back on Wildlands Ghost War for 2 years, 2.5 years. I don't think I picked up the Breakpoint PvP. We just went back to Wildlands. I don't know whether that was representative of a lot of the community or not, but our experience was nah. And that's the first time in the Ghost Recon franchise, as we were saying earlier, for Tyrant, I've been playing it from the original. That's the first time I've gone backwards on a game.
Hey, so Blue Fox, I'm going to ask you a specific question here, because you have played Frontline and you have played extensively PvP on Wildlands and Breakpoint. So for a lot of people out there, well, for the majority of people out there, they wouldn't have played Frontline. Tell people what you feel is what is the fundamental differences, because I think a lot of people just thought it was a PvP game with a battle royal element. Explain to people the differences, because you're in a better position to do it than me, because I don't play that much PvP on Ghost Recon. How wide was the gap between PvP on Ghost Recon and Frontline?
Not as wide as you'd think. To be fair to Frontline, it was a pretty good game. It was pretty slick. It was pretty polished. It played really well. You're in your team, and it had 2 modes. Don't forget. So people get the reveal showed that there were 2 modes. Don't think I'm breaking ND here. There was the battle royale mode, and then there was a kind of like a team deathmatch mode, with 12v12 players or whatever the number was. I can't remember what the number was. So it had those 2 modes, and they played pretty well. It was slick. The game was quite well optimized when I played it. Even though I was playing, I'm a console gamer, and I was playing against PC players, so I was at quite a disadvantage. But it played pretty well as a game. So I think the real difference was the fact that in any battle royale game, because that was the flagship. Have I gone off? Am I still here?
Yeah, you're still here, dude. Yeah.
Oh yeah, my
Oh, yeah.
screen turned off. My screensaver went on. It's like, oh, I've gone blind. It was. I've lost my train of thought there. The main difference between it and a normal Ghost Recon was that in a battle royale scenario, there's a huge element of random luck, what weapons you find. I mean, I just hate finding weapons. Just that you spend the first 10 minutes of a battle royale running around trying to find a decent gun, and then it seems to be random luck about who sees who first. But did have some good firefights on it, had some good teamwork, as you do work your team, but it was just too far away from the scenario in which you'd expect to play a Ghost Recon game.
Do you think it was salvageable though? Do you think with a bit of tweaking, they could have just like gone back, had a rethink, and just taken on board the feedback and brought it up to par?
I think it was. So some of the feedback and suggestions were that take it out of being 100 operators are all independent and potentially somehow make them all in the same theater, but they're working together somehow, and it's just the first team that gets out wins the bragging rights or something like that. the whole battle royale concept didn't suit the Ghost Recon brand. I don't think. The finding your weapons bit. So for me, the three big things were the battle royale concept. Well, I'm not one team versus another team, so therefore it doesn't feel realistic. You know, I'm one of three of a team of three amongst 100 players, which I guess 30 odd teams or whatever. I'm pretty sure it wasn't 100 teams of three. So you're in this kind of like random who finds who first situation. The fact that you don't have a loadout that you can just start with and start playing. So any battle royale feels to me that you're spending half the time you're alive trying to find a decent weapon.
Yeah, they could have solved that with loadouts, just like a
They
point-based
could've,
loadout
yeah.
system.
So if you started with a loadout, and if you'd started with some kind of concept for the game that meant you weren't artificially just against all the other teams, I don't know if that works with the concept, but they could have saved it. And also, as I said earlier, there was another mode which was a fairly decent mode. They could have potentially advertised that first and just had the battle royale. If it kept with the classic, like Slade was saying, if they'd had conflict, siege, team deathmatch, and by the way, we're going to put a battle royale mode in, but that's just an aside. Perhaps the reception would have been different.
Do you think they could have done a team-based battle royale where you're not like one man army, you're just like you're on a team?
Oh, it was a team, so you were a
All
team
right.
of three. So you weren't
Right, okay.
you weren't solo, and even if you queued solo, you would join other players. But it still didn't feel that you were a part of an overall endeavor of one adversary against another adversary. You knew that the other
Yeah.
teams were there, and it was still had that same, because Warzone has that same thing. You can squad up with the group of four.
So it feels like you need an objective then, rather than just shooting each other.
Yeah, there were objectives in there. They kind of tried. Funny enough, there's a little bit of the conflict element in there, so they tried to put some of that in. But together, it didn't quite work for me.
I believe, just jumping in there quickly, I believe some of the things that people didn't like as well was it's just some of the elements that are used within Battle Royale. The way in Battle Royale that you will call things in. For example, that you would call, in the game, you could call in the protective wall to hide behind. Now, no one has an issue of having a protective wall to hide behind because we do it in all games in some form. But calling it in like that from the sky,
It's very Fortnite.
and this is where I think Ubisoft, should need to understand the most that even though there are, of course, completely unrealistic elements to, especially the more recent Ghost Recon games, they're still looked at as being semi-realistic. And I think the more you get away from that, the more it turns people in the Ghost Recon community off. And I think when they watched the trailer and saw stuff floating out of the sky and landing on the battlefield, they were like, what is this? This isn't Ghost Recon.
I agree 100%. I was going to say, you go back to your questionnaires, Andy, where you had all these questions about what would you like in the next Ghost Recon, and all the people that answered wanted this, and this, and then they come out with a frontline PvP. It's like, that's not all what hardly anybody wanted that's in this community.
Do you know what? You've just made such an excellent point, because I think a lot of Frontline was about the timing as well. I don't think we really look at the timing. From the point you just made, we just had Breakpoint a couple of years before. There were issues with Breakpoint. People had issues with Breakpoint over, I'm not going to go through it all because we all know them. Now, yes, they were trying to improve that game and add things, and I think they did improve that game. I still really enjoy Breakpoint. I know a lot of us do.
I play it every day.
But there were still flaws with the game. There were things that people were saying that should never have been there. It should never have been added because it was unrealistic. We didn't want it, and you wasted time with it. And that we saw, for example, the community kind of the agenda thing that was put up. That they photographed and put in their office of it being up on the wall. That these are, they're listening. That's all we kept getting told, is that they're listening, and they are, and we could see they were listening by updates that were coming in Breakpoint, the Ghost experience modes, things like that. We were like, okay, they are listening. They know what we want. They know the direction to go in now. And all of a sudden, Frontline drops. And you were suddenly, and suddenly everyone was like, I thought they were listening.
Yeah, they should never have mentioned Frontline. Certainly not on the anniversary before Motherland came out. That was totally off timing. Should have got Motherland out. Everyone would have been in a better place.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to me, it just feels like they not listening, then they kind of like lied to us almost. Like, I mean, it's like they didn't. This is what you want. Oh, okay, and then turn around and they give you as exact opposite of what you wanted.
I mean, I wonder when the criticism of Breakpoint, I mean, we don't know 100% how long Frontline was in development for. We've been told what it was, but I've also heard other things. When obviously it was in development for quite a long time, they would have known whilst it was in development about a lot of the criticisms from Breakpoint at that point, when they pretty much ditched the raid after people saying, why is this in this game? Things like that. They would have known, and surely someone would have said, look, raids are not welcome in this game for a lot of players. Why are we doing a battle royale? But yet it still carried on and continued to be made. And as we all saw, that first trailer, and also putting it out at the 20th anniversary, when Motherland was kind of pushed aside, when, as Vandal just said, should have been their number one priority to show off. Look at what we've been doing. Look at how we listen. And instead, it looked like they were kind of, we didn't listen as much as we should have. Now, that's not all of Ubisoft, because obviously we know it was a different. Part of Ubisoft that was doing it was Bucharest. We don't know how much they talk or don't talk or anything. We don't know. And I do think that there was just a disconnect there, because I do believe that if Paris are making the next game, they won't suddenly come up with. I truly do not believe if Paris are making the next game, we will get raids, gear score, battle royales, anything like that in the next game. I really do not believe that at all.
Yeah, I don't think we will. I mean, but it's worth making a point that Bucharest and any studio, actually any development studio that are working on a game, are working under the direction of the production team, which is based in Paris. So it's hard to see that Bucharest were totally on their own with this.
Yeah, it does. Sorry, on you go here. I was just going to say, it does make you wonder, and we've seen this time and again, why a lot of this stuff isn't getting picked up by QA and internal test before it goes out to the community.
What kind of stuff do you mean? The stuff about that was it within Frontline? You mean like the kind of flying out of midair, like walls and things like that?
Yeah, that sort of stuff. Because it's like if they're doing QA internally, I wonder if anyone pointed that out before they released it on the world. This might not go down too well because of XYZ.
I wonder if they genuinely thought we can't do this game without these things. Where are you going to take cover? I know there were buildings in the game, but
so
a lot of it was open.
On that, again, it's down to how they do it. Magic and like materializing things out of thin air that's just fantasy stuff. But if you had an actual supply drop mechanic, for example, where you called in a chopper, dropped a box, and you had to run after it and unpack the stuff you'd requested, maybe that would have worked a bit better. Again, tying it to some form of realism rather than just
Yeah, exactly.
manifesting things out of thin air.
So that if you need
What-
something and you call a bit of kit, there's going to be a time penalty for doing that. You're going to have to wait for the chopper to get there. But then, to me, that was what there's now. Again, I had to take a realism leap rather. There's 30 teams here, all calling in 30 different choppers. Who owns the airspace? That's not real. So the very fact that it was an air supply route to you, but you started a game without a weapon, it's just not right, guys. This takes me out of the realism fantasy, if you like, of Ghost Recon, and just puts me somewhere else. It's a made up game. It's a made up scenario to have a game. And I know all games
I think,
do that, but
yeah. Anytime you start introducing something that's not realistic, that the general public at least don't know about, it's iffy. It could be, it could fail and it could be great because the general public don't know about it.
How well does everyone think? Let's say they were carrying on with it in the same format. How realistically do you think it would have had an audience, or do you think we're talking people would have jumped in for a bit of Twitch streaming for a few weeks and slowly it died, or do you think it could have picked up an audience?
if it had been before Warzone, then it could have picked up the kind of audience that Warzone has got. But it was after Warzone.
Yes, it's very difficult.
Which part was before or after Warzone? I might have missed
Warzone
something.
was already released, so Frontline's not, obviously it didn't make it to release, did it? So Frontline, the reveal for Frontline came out.
Oh
what,
yeah,
2 years after the first
definitely
Warzone?
after Warzone. Yeah, Warzone was already. It's Warzone is actually in its second game, third game now, because it came out with Modern Warfare 19. It was still around for what's the one that they just did with the Cold War, and then they got this current one out. So it's been out just as long as Ghost Recon has been out, but it naturally, Ghost Recon's a once every 4 year game versus Call of Duty is a every year game. So
Yeah.
Not from this year.
Well, just using as an example, it's an every year game. I mean, they did have 3 companies putting out the game, and they had a 3-year window of putting out a new game every year once they started rolling. So
we think if Call of Duty had never created Warzone, then I think what Blue Fox was trying to say is that I think this may have had a chance.
I would
to-
say so.
But,
I
yeah,
would say
then-
so.
Yeah,
Then
to
the counter
grow.
argument, because you were asking the question about, well, what did the community ask for? What do they want? And part of the criticism of Frontline was it was copying what another game had done, or it was derivative of another game. So if Warzone had never come out, if you imagine that scenario, Warzone had never existed, Frontline probably wouldn't have been an innovative game that Ubisoft produced, and that is kind of almost like the crucial criticism for me, is that it was a derivative of other games. It wasn't them. It wasn't Ubisoft creating a unique game or a game that was different, a game that was based on a franchise. It seemed to be a game that was designed to appeal to people that were playing other games already.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a
That's-
very
So
brave
same criticism
design.
you could levy against Breakpoint when it came out. They were copying
Yeah.
stuff from other games. They do have a problem with that, copying rather than innovating.
And that's not always been Ubisoft, though, has it? I mean,
No.
it really hasn't. They've got a lot of franchises that they were the ones that felt like they were taking the kind of bold leaps on a lot of these franchises. And now it doesn't quite tend to be like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying it's always going. I mean, I'm really interested in playing Skull and Bones. I think I mentioned this on another podcast before. I'm genuinely, I love pirate stuff. So for me, it's like, oh, this looks good. But I won't lie, I am concerned by it at the same time. How long it's taken. And a lot of people I've seen a lot of people criticizing the graphics, saying this looks years old already, which, I think is a fair point. So I get why people's kind of criticisms come about regards to, copying and not innovating.
You got to know your brand. Your brand of your game, the identity of the franchise is really, really important. And I think Frontline just didn't recognize the Ghost Recon brand.
You guys talking about? By the way, I'm back.
Death of Frontline.
ITK has joined us from another what company, Aficionado. We are talking about the Death of Frontline, just in general, what we thought of it, and we're kind of discussing about why we thought it failed. Would love to hear your thoughts on that, dude.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man. I think the last time we had this podcast, I talked about it. Nobody asked for that. Not a single Ghost Recon fan. Nobody asked for that. And I mean, it came out of the blue. I mean, they pulled the resources out of Breakpoint's PvP to create that, and now it's canceled. I mean, not a single. We've been asking for fixes for Breakpoints since day one. I mean, when we first played it, Blue Fox, we didn't play the PvP, but we knew it was going to be part of it. We knew that things needed to get fixed, and we asked for it, and it looked like, from what we heard and from what they told us, that they were going to work with us to get things fixed. And 6 months into it, they pulled the Bucharest team off and put them on Frontline, and now we don't have a Ghost Recon and we don't have Frontlines. It's nobody asked for it. I don't know where they got their resources or their reference to come out with this game. Nobody knows. I've asked them before and they've never responded. So I don't know. It's I could have told you it was going to be dead on arrival if they would have let me see what they had. It's.
Do you think it's more damaging for the Ghost Recon franchise to have Frontline out in the wild for people being able to play, or more damaging to be cancelling the game?
No, that's a good thing they canceled it, because even though it's going to be a free to play game, people would have played it just to play it because it's free to play for a month or two, and then boom, gone. They'd have gone back to the games that did introduce that 5 years ago, or other titles. I mean, the battle royale, it's not that popular anymore. I mean, you got PUBG, stuff like that, but and Call of Duty, I think they have a battle royale too, right? But nothing like to that scale. But that's that gamers, man, you can change. Gamers change their minds all the time. Like they jump from one game to another. Now, Ghost Recon fans, they don't. They kind of follow the title, man. We have been for years, and as soon as they introduced this Frontline to us, nobody wanted any part of that. And they won't say it, but that's, in my opinion, that's why they canceled it.
Here's a question. Here's a weird question on it. Now, most of you guys in the Delta group, Delta company, were able to play it. How many people were in game with you guys?
It was full server. So
yeah, it was full up.
Was that a scheduled thing, or you guys get in contact with each other? Hey, let's play again Tuesday night at 5:00, or was it just random pop in?
So when they do a game test, it's a closed test effectively. So it'll be at a certain time because they're setting up servers specifically for that test. Yeah.
Right.
So they're not hiring a service from a data center and just running it. They're setting up a server and they're measuring things. They're testing what's going on. So they're doing a lot of. For them, it's a lot of technical testing. For us, it's play testing.
Did they
Yeah,
have like a member count or something like that visible?
yeah. I think what they do is they tend to have a lot of developers playing it as well. So there was a group of us that were playing it, um, and I was able to form a team with a couple of good guys that I've known before. So we for every test we regrouped and ran us a 3 every time, and it was quite interesting. And I was saying that there was quite a good dynamic when you did that, but the servers were full up all the time. It's only EU, of course, which is why ITK um, didn't get to test it, because there wasn't an American testing, and that in itself is a big question mark. Why was it just EU players that got to test it? And I guess there were technical limitations in terms of the latency between the servers. They didn't set up servers in the States, so they were testing it amongst people in the EU.
So that's probably, and I'm not picking on EU in general, but it's possible why it may have failed, because the EU has a different gaming style versus the US.
I don't think so. I think that the feedback from the EU and the feedback from the American communities when they saw it were pretty similar. It's just
Yeah, because
Yeah,
Blue Fox
I
didn't
don't.
have anything to do with. I mean, he didn't test it initially. Like it was tested after it was already in development. Like when we got with Wildlands, it was like early in development, like alpha testing. So there was time to change everything. Blue Fox and the EU guys, they were already testing something that they already had their mindset into. You know that this is the way they're going to run this game. There was the EU guys had no idea, or have basically they had feedback as far as what the game is like, but not feedback as far as what the game should be. You know, they couldn't say, hey, no, this is
So
not
they
going
was
to work.
just bug testing.
Yes,
no. I mean,
basically.
yeah, we were able to give feedback. So the feedback, as usual formats, they ask specific questions of areas they want to investigate, what you thought about. But there's also the free form feedback, in which I felt fairly vindicated that what I told them, actually the whole because all I can ever do when I play a game is say what I think, um, not what I think other people should think. So I say this is what I think of the game, but it was pretty much in tune with what the rest of the community were saying, which all based around that. Well, it's not quite got that Ghost Recon theme. We're all Ghost Recon fans because it's got a certain brand image. It's got a certain way it plays that everyone recognised that Breakpoint moved too far away from that, and everyone can reference what they think a Ghost Recon should be, and most people here would agree probably that Frontline didn't seem to be what a Ghost Recon should be.
What
I
I
think
find
Andy hit on it perfectly earlier when he said, "Do you think that they made this game to get their foot in the door to pull people back to like a breakpoint?"
as in pull people back, I get more people involved in the franchise overall. I mean,
Yes,
the
and
weird
that's
thing
why
is,
I think that's why they made the game.
yeah, I mean,
That was their motivation.
possibly. The problem is for me, let's say you'd never, ever, ever in your life played a Ghost Recon game, and you then go on and you see this free to play game on your store, whatever it is you're playing it on. You jump in, you play it, and go, oh, okay, so this is Ghost Recon. This is what Ghost Recon's all about. I'm going to go and play. I'm going to check out another Ghost Recon. What was the last one? Oh, it was Breakpoint. I'm going to go and play that. You'd put it on and you'd go, okay, this is a completely different game.
We're creatures of habit. That's what we do with every game. I mean, if you fall in love with Assassin's Creed or Far Cry or Call of Duty, you buy the next game.
Exactly, and that's the thing. And to me, they play very differently.
Right.
I mean, I was quite interested of the fact that when Frontline was tested initially, that a lot, I believe, a lot of the people on the tests, that there weren't many people on there. I don't believe from Delta Company, but there were a lot of people that I didn't know, and I presume there weren't people from the Ghost Recon community. They were from other communities that they'd reached out to. I didn't know a lot of these players. So I don't know if they were more. I really don't know where they come from or what their speciality was. Whether they were first-person shooters, whether they were YouTubers, I really don't know because I didn't know them. But they came from somewhere, and they would have been brought in for a reason, I'm presuming. And I know that other people. I've seen a few videos and stuff on YouTube with people talking about the fact when they were allowed to, at least we were allowed to say if you'd played it. I remember seeing a couple of people saying they'd played it, and I didn't know who these people were. They didn't seem to have any Ghost Recon content on their channels. So I believe that, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, to be fair, that if you're making a first-person shooter and a battle royale, you wouldn't necessarily go to just people who play third-person tactical games. You'd want a wider variety of people. So I don't blame them for doing that at all. But
you'd want to get the opinion of the expert that plays that style of game all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So no, it makes complete sense for them to do that. But
however, there is an argument to be made that if they rely too heavily on it, they lose focus of the core, which an expert in the franchise would know more than those who just know about that individual game type.
And that was going to be my final point, which you just said. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, Ghost Recon is niche and it's unique, and that's why we play it, because there is nothing else that scratches the itch in quite the same way as Ghost Recon does. When they start bringing in mechanics and changing the gameplay to be like other things, you lose that uniqueness. It's like Dark Souls bringing in like I don't know, battle royale mode. They wouldn't do it. They're continually successful by sticking to what defines that game, and I think in terms of Ghost Recon in the future, I think they should stick to the definition of the franchise.
I think you're right, Vandar.
That's
exactly
perfectly said.
The only game I can think of recent that they've changed, that Ubisoft changed anyways, is Assassin's Creed with Valhalla.
But even Assassin's Creed's been criticised for losing its way.
That's what I'm saying. They changed because I played almost quite a few of them games on the PS3 or since the PS3, and when I got Valhalla for the PS4, I liked it, but it seemed like it wasn't the same game.
It's
I can tell you
now.
this. Yeah, I can tell you this though, just from somebody that I love Assassin's Creed. I mean, the Ezio, just perfect, and I stopped playing it after Black Flag because it you get rid of Desmond Miles. That's like getting rid of Lara Croft and Tomb Raider, right? So it just killed me,
It's
but
not
I went
Assassin's
back
Creed anymore.
it's not Assassin's Creed anymore. But I went back and played Origin. Origin is really, really good. But you know what? It's Breakpoint. It's Breakpoint in a different skin.
It's a different game. It is a different game. It's a really good game, but it's a different game. It's not the traditional Assassin's Creed stealth and all of that.
Not. But it's I mean, Ubisoft basically carbon copied. Well, because Breakpoint or Origin came out in 2016, 2017, right? And that was about the same year that Wildlands came out. And Origins is Breakpoint is basically a carbon copy of Assassin's Creed Origin. I could not believe it when I was playing the game. I was like, wow, if I had a gun in my hand, this would be Ghost Recon.
Yeah, I mean,
it's exactly the same game.
And the thing is, they've openly admitted they wanted to turn Assassin's Creed into The Witcher 3. That they've said that, we're going to copy what Witcher 3 did because it was successful, and it's like, at the cost of the franchise identity.
Yeah, they had a huge success with the previous games. I mean, dude, the storytelling in their Ubisoft. That's one thing about Ubisoft. They can storytell if they implement it correctly, man. They can tell. I mean, they can make books out of these things, which I think they do anyways. But they're really good at storytelling, and that's basically what why we play campaigns. To get that we're the main character of this story. And but yeah, I could not believe it because I love Origins now. I mean, I just finished it like a couple of days ago, and this game came out 4 or 5 years ago, and it's incredible. But I felt like I was playing Breakpoint at times because it was basically the same freaking game without a fucking MP7 in my hand, you know.
Yeah.
Well, if you think about it, Assassin's Creed was popular enough and well liked enough for them to actually make a movie from it. And not many games. Look at there's other games out there that people have been crying out for. Oh, this would make a brilliant film, and they've never happened. But they did it with Assassin's Creed. They must have thought that, we have a fan base here that will probably go want to see this and hopefully appeal to other people on top of it, which might get them playing the games too. They thought it was big enough for that. I don't think they ever needed to go, this needs to be more like The Witcher. The Witcher should be its own thing. Assassin's Creed should be its own thing. And there's definitely been a blending of some of these games. But what I'm interested in is if there's no front line, and the PvP on Breakpoint obviously was kind of pushed aside a long, long time ago. Where do we stand now on a new game? What do they do with the PvP? Do they go back and do what they did on just make a decent enough kind of PvP experience, like AKA kind of Wildlands experience? Or do they build it from scratch? Do they make it a separate, completely kind of separate game later? What do we do now with PvP?
Okay, here's the thing that we have to do. Well, in my opinion, they have to get the right people in there to give them feedback on what PvP should be for Ghost Recon. Like Blue Fox, we've been doing PvP since the first Ghost Recon, or basically, really, honestly, mine I think was maybe Advanced Warfighter. This was when I really got into it. So I was playing a lot of SOCOM, and then Future Soldier, and then of course Wildlands. Wildlands got real competitive. I even played against Blue Fox, and they need to get the right people giving them feedback on what. I don't know where they get these people. I mean, they obviously did their homework when they invited Blue Fox, Rocky, Jonathan, Matt Shacha, who else?
Diesel,
Yeah,
Corti-
Diesel.
Protection.
Yeah, they pulled in. They did their research. They looked at people that actually played this game, the PvP part of the game too. I mean, of course, I know Blue Fox from PvP. I knew Matt Shacha from PvP. I didn't know Rocky at the time, and so he was Rainbow Six coach, so he was a PvP guy. So basically, we were all PvP guys, even though we were brought in for basically Wildlands that didn't have PvP. But look how successful Wildlands was, and then even the Wildlands PvP was successful because it was the same core group of guys that gave them feedbacks. The problem is that Ubisoft has strayed away, and they stayed straight away from the PvP community, and it's always been like that, though. For a long time, the PvP community is always that yeah, okay, we'll get to you in a little bit, but we got Blue Fox will tell you too. After Wildlands was so successful, we got it from the not what was not Eric, what was uh, I'm losing his name. Blue Fox. Golly,
What? You're talking one of the Ubisoft guys?
yeah, the main Ubisoft guy that covers that did not
Nordine.
Xavier.
Nordine Abu.
Nordine told. I mean, I can tell you guys this. I don't think it's a bad thing saying this, but Nordine said that he's gonna back the PvP guys. I mean, we talked about it. We had during Breakpoint we talked about it, and he said, "Yeah, I got you guys." And I really think that if we were in Nordine's ears, like if we were talking to him every day, that it would have happened. But we were there only for a few days when we were there in Paris. We were only there for a few days and tell him, and he was excited about it, more excited than we were when we told him. He was like, "Yeah, no problem. All I got to do is say yes. We'll do this." But we were only there for a couple of days. But you imagine if we were there?
We were saying, I remember that this because talking about the future of PvP for Ghost Recon and how that sits, we were at the time Rainbow Six Siege had been out a little while and was expanding rapidly and was a really good game, and it was an esports game. We were saying to Nordine that as good as Rainbow Six is, it's a real fun. If you're I don't know who's watched esports and if you watch Rainbow Six play out, it's real fast screenshots. The action's really ultra fast. You go from this shot to this shot to this shot. It's hard to watch for me.
Yeah.
And we're saying, look, if you look at an overview of Ghost Recon, the players are moving slowly. You can build tension there. It's a much better esport. It's a much better spectator sport, esport, than Rainbow Six is. When you've got Ghost Recon, the pacing of Ghost Recon and the way that the teams will move tactically and approach each other, and yeah, then you'll get a burst of action or whatever. It's a much better game
to
I
watch.
remember
Yeah,
we had that conversation with Nordine and trying to persuade him, and he was really on board with
yeah.
it.
He was actually, dude. He was eating his pizza, saying, "Man, you guys just tell me, we'll jump on it, we'll do it." But then, we aren't in his ear every day. We aren't there telling him this, but somebody is. And so somehow that straight away, because he was like Blue Fox, he was super excited because we have never, when we tell the team, the dev team, Nordine, Eric, when we tell them something, we're not telling them just to say it, oh yeah, this is great. We're telling them for a reason. I mean, we honestly believe that the PvP could have been really freaking awesome because it's a lot more fun to watch. If it really is to watch something like Wildlands PvP compared to
It's the
Rainbow
right
Six,
pace.
because it's just it's more you see more, like where the first person shooter, when they're watching Rainbow Six Siege, they're switching camera to camera, right? But you only seeing their view, where in Wildlands or even Breakpoint's still pretty good. You're seeing an overview of what they're seeing. You're seeing the full environment of the combat that they're engaging in. And I'm telling you, Nordine was all on board. He was like, "You guys just tell me, and I'll get."
So that
I
brings
mean,
us back,
what
I
do you
think.
say?
It brings us back to the
Or
point
he'll write the
right,
check or some shit like that.
Bullet Catcher's point about
Yeah.
without Frontline, where do we think the future of Ghost Recon PvP is? And to be honest, I'm concerned that after Frontline, although I think it was the right decision to can Frontline, will the next game even have PvP? I don't know at this point.
Yeah,
Are they starting to separate PvP from campaign mode? Like make it two separate games totally?
That did seem to be Frontline would indicate that was an intention.
Yeah.
Although they
And
did
that's
say it was
because that
free to play.
another game I was kind of getting some information on secondhand, but they said they was going to separate the campaign mode from the online, so you'd actually have two different games.
Yeah, because the campaign in the earlier games, Slade Torrent, you'll probably remember as well, won't you? The earlier game, there was quite an extensive campaign element to it and a PvP element to it. But what Wildlands changed was an ongoing campaign PvE experience that didn't end. Whereas up to Future Soldier, there was a campaign that was a story that you just played and ended. Wildlands introduced that open world concept, and open world can mean lots of different things. It's the gameplay styles, the physicality of the map, which is what I like about open world. But the PvE is expected to go on and on and on, which is why Breakpoint, I think, fell down the RPG trap. It's a way of making a campaign go on and on and on, and that means you get your player attention in the campaign and PvE mode as opposed to just the PvP. So yeah, at this point, I guess the conversation that ITK and I were having with Nordine about what we saw as potential for PvP, there must be other forces within Ubisoft that maybe need persuading. And what's happened with Frontline concerns me that that could be the end of PvP for Ghost Recon.
I think you make a really good point. Just let me just say one really quick thing. I want to. So you make a really good point there, because I think if Frontline had been released, even if it hadn't been that successful, but it did get a release, I don't think the new game would have any PvP at all. I think that's almost definite. Had this come out, there would be no PvP on the new game.
It's
Nothing.
possible, but then the sort of Phantoms came out as a standalone free to play, so it isn't the first time that they've done it, and there's been a PvP in the other game. So of course, Future Soldier had PvP, and Phantoms came out.
Well,
But
Good point.
that's
but here's a
really
weird
nice.
here's a weird thought now. Now we've had X Defiant come out and go. We've got Frontline come out and go, but never made it to fruition. Now we still have one that we're all speculating on, which is codename Over. What if that combination of these games that died coming out?
I think that'd be a very, very wrong move.
I mean, not necessarily saying that it's the exact, but it is something that they might have tested. Said, okay, well, it'd be kind of cool to have, shit drop out the sky. And you can use that as protection. And then Defiant being, okay, you can play with your Assassin's Creed player in a Breakpoint game.
If they believe that things dropping out the sky, it would be great for the next Ghost Recon game. They haven't listened to anyone in the community.
Yeah, that'd be a facepalm.
Other than us repelling down.
So I think Over's probably been in development about as long as Frontline has, at least in the background. So I think they were probably assuming that Frontline would take the PvP. I don't know what they'll do with Over. I was thinking though, just playing devil's advocate, about if we had a normal sort of mainline entry to the series and Over, could invasion mode work, where you effectively have teams dropping into other sessions to hunt them down and things like that?
Oh, are you talking
that
like
would-
Sniper Elites?
Something like that, yeah, but more team-based.
I would like it. Naturally, I mean,
I would love to have.
if I would, like, an example would be to also have, even if it's just PvE, and I think we brought it up before, you go claim a base, you have a certain amount of time. If you leave that base, it gets reclaimed. But that would be considered more of a raid than what the raid is currently.
Yeah, proper
Yeah.
raid.
But
Yeah.
I mean, that's possible because it wasn't it on San Andreas where you took over an area, and then from the whatever group it was, and then if you left it, didn't frequent that area, they would take it back over.
Yeah, a bit like the Division.
Yeah.
Well, that was on San Andreas, GTA San Andreas.
Oh, GTA.
Well,
Yeah.
Here's my thing. Even if there's no if they're working on a strictly PvE game for Ghost Recon, which they might be. I think maybe Paris is working on something. There's nothing to say that they won't implement a PvP because, to be honest, dude, the only reason Wildlands got PvP is because of our feedback. Because we were like, "Where's our PvP?" And they pulled in guys from Bucharest, and introduced PvP. I mean, of course, it was released 6 months later, right after Wildlands,
Yeah,
but yeah, something like that. But it initially wasn't even part of the game, so I could see that they might be working on something, but the PvP community is half, maybe not half. Okay, maybe like a quarter of the Ghost Recon community. And
I'll say this: if they
go
ahead, I'm sorry.
No, to leave us out of the mix would be the same mistake they're doing with Frontline now. But again, it all comes down. Every bit of this comes down. The next title comes down to feedback, proper feedback. I mean, they obviously got feedback from somebody for Frontlines. It was terrible feedback. It was the wrong feedback, and I think they understand that now. But they just got to get the right. It doesn't have to be me. It doesn't have to be Blue Fox. It doesn't have to be any of us, but just somebody that plays Ghost Recon, because whoever told them Frontline was okay never played Ghost Recon. That's
yeah, and the thing is, they could have pitched Frontline way back before they started in pre-production and all of that, and they would have got the same feedback back then. and saved themselves a whole lot of time, effort, and embarrassment.
I think the thing that killed Ghost Recon Breakpoint was timing, and me and Carbon and somebody else was talking about this just the other night. They picked 3 weeks before Modern Warfare to come out with their game, whereas if they would have waited, even if it was after Christmas, it would have been a better chance.
I agree with you in one respect on that, and in another way I don't. And the reason why I don't is because I still believe that there's a big enough. Yes, I'm sure there are plenty of players. I played both games. I'm sure a lot of us played both games, but it never made me think, oh, do you know what? I'm enjoying Modern Warfare. I won't play Ghost Recon. I think if you make a great Ghost Recon game, people will play it, and even if there's another good game that comes out 3 weeks later, they'll still play it. I think the biggest issue is that Wildlands was hugely successful. It pulled in a core group of players. It sold millions and millions of copies, and people were expecting a follow-up style game to Wildlands and didn't really get it. That's, for me, the only reason why Breakpoint fell flat. Initially, because there were all those things. There's a lot of, we've talked about these millions of times before. There's so many casual Ghost Recon players, for example. You know, I see it on my YouTube comments all the time, where people they mention a comment and they talk about the fact that they'll play with their AI teammates. Now, I don't play with AI teammates. I know a lot of people that I play with don't play with AI teammates, but that doesn't mean to say that loads of people don't play with AI teammates because they don't necessarily have friends who play Ghost Recon or whatever. And that's just one minor point from Breakpoint. The fact that when it came out, there was no AI. So if you were used to playing Wildlands for years with your AI and suddenly they weren't there, that game would feel hugely different to you. And suddenly they'll feel like they're being forced to play the game in a way that they didn't before. I mean, that's just one point. You know, forget the raids, forget all that, and that, you know, and I get there's loads of people that like playing raids, and I get that, but I still don't believe they belong in a Ghost Recon game, and not the way they're done anyway.
Not the giant robots.
No, if they're done differently, go and kill the camp commander or go and do that, then to me you can call that whatever you want. It could be called a raid, it could be called whatever. But yeah, that could work, but not what they did. For me, it's still not what we wanted. Didn't need to be there. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting point, nonetheless. But obviously, we've talked about PvP and what we think kind of needs to be there. Do you think that the assets from Frontline could be utilized in any way in another game? Do you think that could be one of the reasons? They go, look, we've made all this stuff. Why don't we use some of it? Do you think they would, or do you think it's all just going in the bin?
I think the battle royale it's a non-factor now. I mean, I don't think that's anything they can keep from Frontline. You know, yeah, okay, keep first-person shooter, but you know, give you the option to scroll out to third-person shooter, whatever, you know, or make it first-person shooter servers only, or you know, stuff like that. But I really think the battle royale system it's not anything that we really asked for. It's not squad. Well, I don't want to say it's not squad based because they had squads, but it's just not something that. Okay, make it a mode. Keep it, but make it a mode. But give us our traditional capture the flag or you know, future soldier style objectives. You know, something like that. You know.
I think I think the map was interesting. The way that they'd built the map with all these different regions and what looked like objectives. So it'd be a bit of a waste if all of that work on the map and that went to waste.
How big was that map, or was it more like a Call of Duty, like you have certain boundaries, and then when that match is over, then you went to another one if you wanted to, or was it more open world where you just went here and done this? And I mean, how was it, like, as far as
I don't think I ever hit the edge of the map playing it.
It looked huge.
So it looked more. So it played more like an open world map then.
It was
Like
like
an open world
Warzone.
game?
To me, it was like Warzone size. It was pretty big.
It's big, yeah.
Okay.
See, that's a shame, losing all that. Because you could use the
Right.
map and just put different mechanics on it.
To tell you the truth,
Yeah.
the Warzone map is still smaller than Aurora.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's nowhere near as big as like Breakpoint's open world map or Wildlands' open world map. No, nowhere near as big. I'd say it's probably about half the size. But I would like to see. As Vandar just said, the map. I had no issues with the map. In terms of the map design, it was fine. It's just the game mode that was taking place on the map. It just didn't fit. And for me, I think out of all of these issues that we've talked about, I have to go back to what AI Blue Fox said earlier, because I think he hit the nail on the head perfectly and said there's just too many dynamics that don't fit, to be fair, regards to what you expect from Ghost Recon, and it wasn't there. That these things where you said we would start without a weapon, that immediately is not Ghost Recon. The airspace problem, that's not Ghost Recon. Like it's supposed to be a tactical military shooter, yet all of these components for Battle Royale don't fit a tactical military shooter.
Right.
Yeah,
And
for me, that
I mean,
premise
there's
of why
several
you're there
times
is
like.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry.
So I was just saying the premise of the game, the reason you're there as a combatant, it has to be. You're still playing a computer game, but the premise of why you're there is an important factor of that for the immersion for me.
I mean, there's plenty of times we play Ghost Recon, we play Breakpoint, and we drop our weapons. So we start off with a knife and a pistol, and and it's just like maybe a battlefield pickup. But you don't drop in to a PvP and have to hunt for a weapon.
No, exactly. So
No.
it's a bit like, I mean, FIFA. I always draw the parallel with other games where you're competing, sort of, or especially
Well,
for the PvP chat. And you don't start FIFA without boots and without shorts. You don't start Formula One in a go kart or a soapbox, unpowered go kart rolling down a hill, and build up to the point where you can actually then play the game. To me, it feels like you're spending so much of your time and effort to get to a state in which you'd expect to start the game. So I don't.
Right.
The game to me isn't about finding stuff. It's about having a competition with pre-armed.
I think they need to sort of look at that sort of strategic layer and the systems that we've talked about, Blue Fox.
Yeah.
And even then, you can hang PvP off that. If you had a dynamic war zone, effectively, with factions and areas, and there was PvP in that, so you could drop in and take on objectives and things like that, I think that would give you that context of why you're there and sense of purpose.
I've always been really attracted to the idea of that systemic world we've spoken about, and also where you could have people that are playing PvE that perhaps want to take it, and they assign an objective to a PvP team who, and one team plays the assailants and one team plays the defenders potentially.
You link it all together.
And then the result of that outcome, whoever wins, actually determines whether the PvE player was successful in that bit of action they wanted to undertake. Almost like the commander. I mean, Battlefield, I think was it Battlefield 4 or 3, had that commander app that you could play on an iPad or a tablet where you commanded the teams that were actually playing live.
Strategic, huh?
Oh, I
Yeah.
think that was Battlefield 4, wasn't it?
It's
I think.
Battlefield
yeah, I
4,
think
wasn't
it
Yeah.
was.
And you could as a team playing the game, you could take those instructions from someone playing on a tablet who wasn't actually playing the game. They were saying, go and take this objective.
Right, like a
And then
commander.
they did have
Sure.
something for Wildlands very similar to that, where you could use an outside device outside of the game.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, you could see it in the map, and you could tell if you did that on PvP, you could tell which end you were spawning at, Tommy.
Yeah.
Because you'd see the little icons move.
Now, we haven't heard anything from Tonka at all throughout the whole podcast, which is quite strange. So I was wondering what his thoughts were. And GOG jumped in as well. So just wondering if they wanted to add anything regards to Frontline, if they're still there, that is, if they haven't nodded off or anything. Anyone want to say anything?
Tonka's getting coffee.
Oh, Tonka's getting coffee. What about GOG? GOG, are you there or are you just listening in the chat? No.
Yeah, I'm here.
Ah, what did you think of Frontline's cancellation?
It's fine for me. I played Ghost Recon for years. I played Rainbow for years. I'm used to the Ubisoft saying, "Hey, play this game for a little bit." I played it too, and I'm like, "Oh, it's like Ghost Recon's." I had this. I remember back when I was littler and when I played Ghost Recon's Wildlands and the PvP, and I'm like, "Oh, why does this feel solely familiar to that?" And then I'm like, "Is it gonna come out?" They say no, and I'm like, "Oh, okay." With Ubisoft, they don't they get good people sometimes for feedback, right? And they implement the feedback, but nowadays with some of their games, they don't have really good reputation for listening to the community. Let's different topic. Let's take Rainbow for example. This game was going strong for a couple years, right? But eventually nowadays it's dying off. The player base is getting smaller and smaller by the day because Ubisoft doesn't really listen to them as much as they did. And some Ubisoft multiplayer games, they hit good and you enjoy playing them, then they fall off. And then it's either you want to keep playing them or there's a lack of people to play with. Hmm.
You're
But
saying Alien Infestation was off brand for Rainbow Six?
no, it's not. It's not. It's just here's the thing about some games, bud. It's the game. The idea of the game is good, right? But Ubisoft can mess up in three ways. They can either not give the patches and bug fixes for that requirement of that game for months or maybe even years if it gets that bad, or be a lack of content for months. It can go, this is the last update in the 6 months that this game's been out. And you talk to them, right? But they never reply back like, why have I been playing this game for so long and I haven't got anything to play? Where's the new ideas?
I think from what you were just saying about Rainbow Six Siege, GOG, I'm pretty sure that when that game first came out, I remember I bought that game day one, and I'm pretty sure that there was either a message on there or there was a message on the website, one of those two, which did say that there would be down the roadway somewhere, there would be some kind of PvE campaign thing. I'm sure that I read that at some point right back at the beginning because they're basically like an apology that there wasn't one.
I think yeah, there was
And
even before the game came out, there was lots of
Yeah,
talk.
and
about
then
it.
of course they finally give you a PvE game and they make it about aliens, where obviously everyone wanted a PvE game based around what you would imagine that Team Rainbow would be utilized for, which would be some kind of, I don't know, terrorist scenario or whatever, something along those lines. And instead it's like, no, we'll give you aliens instead.
Yeah, feedback, dude. I don't, like I said, dude. I honestly don't know where they get it from, man.
Well, I
But
think for that one, I'll give Ubisoft a pass for that one because I think Rainbow Six grew in a completely different direction. As much as I yearn for the original Rainbow games and like those Rainbow games, remember playing them, they're just blown away by them. Rainbow Six Siege took off in a different direction with the classes and the fantasy element of the classes they started bringing in. And I mean, they've got millions and millions and millions of players. So it became it jumped from being that niche game that we're talking that Ghost Recon
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
It jumped from that.
It did, yeah.
And
It
when
went
they
from being the same level as Ghost Recon to
and when they released it as
Yeah.
a DLC, didn't they? Released a kind of a virus thing for DLC that went down really, really well
Mhm.
with what was their then Rainbow Six community. Now, as I actually think a lot of people make a valid point when they say, well, it's a completely different IP. It's not the Rainbow Six that we grew up with and loved. It's like, yeah, but it's now a completely different game. I wish it wasn't called Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege. I wish it was called something else, but it isn't. When it first came out the first year, I mean, I played it to death the first year and a half. Really like had that team element in, but it should have had a a full PvE campaign, but it didn't. It came out in what's it, 2015, 2016? Did it come out?
Yeah,
Late December
Man,
2015.
you guys weren't playing Rainbow Six when I was playing Rainbow Six.
Did
I
we
was
ever
playing
play
Well-
it?
I was playing Rainbow Six when it was dial up, and guess what? Rainbow Six was not a first person shooter.
oh yeah,
was a-
I remember that.
It was a third person shooter.
Yeah.
Rainbow
I remember
Six
the
was a
original
third
Rainbow
person
Six.
shooter. Yeah. Yeah.
The very
I didn't
original
play
one.
it.
And
Yeah, it was played
really,
on the
it was-
Microsoft what was it? The Microsoft servers. I can't remember.
It was
I-
really
I-
tactical, and you had to map out all your teammates, what they were going to do, and all of that.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, even the PvP. It was. You had up to 8v8 PvP on Rainbow Six. It was not, and I give Jonathan a hard time about this, but it was a third person shooter 8v8, so 16 man teams. You know, it was on dial up, dude.
and
It just
it went from that point, right? And it went a different direction. It went from, oh, this game has a PvE side and a PvP side. When Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege came out, it went from PvP and just small events in the middle of it. But when I didn't realize like that game with the invasion alien stuff came out, I played it and I'm like, bro, this is it was awful. It's just I wish they made it a different idea, like not some invasion zombie type stuff. I wish it was
Mhm.
like when we first got the game, it said Team Rainbow was made to stop terrorists, right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, terrorists. And here's the funny thing about it. The only type of PvE we had, it's not really PvE, was in the tutorial when you could do terrorist missions, like when you were first starting to learn how to play the game and the mechanics and stuff. Like
yeah,
they had
and
those.
then they removed the bombers because they wanted PvP players to use it as practice. So even if I used to quite enjoy playing it on the hardest setting, the T Hunt missions with the bombers as well, and it was quite a challenge. And they even removed that. They even ruined that.
Because man, the Ubisoft company as a whole now, they listen sometimes, but they don't. Then they make bad decisions with some games that some are small and some are so big that it ruins the game for a lot of casual people, pro people, even content creators and people who like love the game so much, but it gets so bad to the point where they just stop playing it.
Here's an interesting point. Earlier on, we were talking about the fact that Ubisoft need to just do their own thing and stop trying to copy other games. What's interesting is you could turn around and say that Frontline was effectively trying to copy Warzone to a degree.
Yep.
But let's be honest, other developers do this too, because it wasn't that long ago when Black Ops 4 came out and lots of
Oh,
people
God.
were saying that was
Oh, no.
they were trying to implement features from Rainbow Six Siege into that game, and they did heavily. They very much so. I mean, you think the PvP on Black Ops 4 was what, 5v5?
Yeah, it was so here's the thing with Call of Duty games, in my opinion. There's the PvP side of it, what the thing is mostly about a Call of Duty. Then there's the campaign, the zombies, of course, because it's a Call of Duty game. And then I remember that game too. It had a battle royale because they were trying to copy. I hate the thing about some developers because they copy the trending things, but in the same way they lose sight of what that game was created about. So why? Why does every game I play either have to have a battle royale freaking mode to it? I just want to play it like it's what they created be played about, though.
No, I totally agree. Well, I think we've kind of come to the end of the frontline discussion. It's been an interesting discussion. Obviously, we're never going to get the game now.
Yep.
It's done. Very interesting to see where the future of Ghost Recon is going to be headed. Hopefully, who knows when we will find out, but hopefully, I don't know. I would like to think that a new game will pop up around September, October of maybe 2023. And they will at least let us know long before that it's coming. But yeah, I mean, Frontline's gone. Let us know in the comments below whether you were looking forward to playing it or whether you think it was a good idea, whether you agree with us, or there's any other points that you think that we've missed here tonight. I do want to say thank you to Iron Mike because the footage that you've been watching in the background is his. He's one of our. He's on the Bullet Catch Discord. He's one of our channel mods. Yeah, unless anyone's got any kind of final comments, then I would, just want to say thank you to, to our guests, especially from the Delta guests that we've had on tonight, and obviously Carbon as well from the Discord, and GOG, but from the Delta guests, Vandar, AI, Blue Fox, and ITK5. And obviously the Slave Tyrant, who's one of our admins.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, thanks.
Sorry I was
Yeah,
late.
me too.
I always
Yeah.
appreciate this talk because, I mean, I have this talk all the time. Sometimes in our What's Up chat with Blue Fox and Jonathan and Rocky and the guys, and it's good to kind of vent it out sometimes in a podcast like this. So I appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Go on,
thanks
dude.
for-
Sorry.
It's fine. Thank you for letting me join this podcast. Like I didn't even think you would click the let me even speak. I thought I was just gonna stay there.
No, dude. Well, this is a community podcast. Everyone is welcome to have their voices heard. I will just say quickly, this originally was going to be a Delta Company podcast, which is probably why you're wondering that we've got quite a few Delta guys on here. But we've had a couple of other Delta people who wanted to come on, and because of the time we were recording this, they couldn't make it. So we thought we're going to delay that, but we still want to do a Delta Company podcast and get all of the Delta Company guys that are here on back on for that one, because obviously Delta Company is now finished. And I think there's a very interesting discussion there that we could have with the community about, did it work? Didn't it work? What could we have done? What could we not have done? Those kind of things. I definitely think there is a discussion to be had. So that will be coming soon. But thank you so much, everyone, for taking part. I really, really do appreciate everyone giving their time to come on. And yeah, if no one else has got anything to say, then I will leave it to Marcus to take us out.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you.
Peace.
This has been a Bullet Catcher Gaming Podcast. Join us next time for another exciting episode. Join us on Discord. Information is in the description. Comment, like, and subscribe. Signing off.